Welcome back, guys. We are finally back on air. Today we are actually recording in my new studio that I've made recently, and why not start with something fantastic and talk about 3 scope cameras made by Runcam. I'm going to talk about which is the best one, which I like the most, which one was not my favorite, and the specs of every single one of them. Now, we're going to start off with the first one I ever got playing Airsoft, and it is the Runcam Scopecam. Now, when I first got this camera, it took a long time to get. I actually bought it from Novridge. I actually bought it from the Novridge website because they're all out of stock everywhere else. I couldn't get any, and I really wanted to get into recording my footage properly. So when I got this, it was all right when I first got it out of the packaging. The specs of it, it's all right. You know, it has an aluminium, alloy body all the way around it, and it has Gorilla Glass to protect the lens. So if it even gets hit by a BB, it's not going to get shattered unless you're a certain someone who might like to shoot out lenses. Then you know who you are. You know who you are. But anyway, that's not the matter. The one thing I like about this exact model is that the fact that you can actually make it go into horizontal and vertical mode. Basically, by unscrewing this little screw just here, if you can see between my 2 fingers, you can take the whole lens out, turn it a slight bit, and then it's either vertical or horizontal. Now with this, it's fantastic because you can either put it straight like this onto your gun on the top of your scope, upside down under maybe your pistol, or side to side on your AEG depending on what you use, or you've got rails on the side. Now, I think this to be fantastic. Runcam has definitely made it perfect for that. They've really thought out of the box when it comes to playing Airsoft with this. Now, this does record in 1080p 60 frames per second. It also records in 720p at 120 frames per second, so you can really slow down those videos to get the perfect slow motion of you hitting someone in a certain spot. It does support a 64 gigabyte micro SD card. Now, they do say to recommend having it above a class 6 SD card. I recommend getting it to class 10. It's just the best, and it just maxes out the class. You definitely want one of those. Anything above 64 gig, the camera's gonna have issues trying to record. I've had that issue, so just keep in mind when buying this that the maximum is 64 gigs, and if you're looking for another camera that might have higher, I might not recommend you going for this one and looking at another model. Surprisingly as well, guys, this camera actually is quite heavy. Now you're thinking no, it's not quite heavy. Well, when you have all your gear put together and everything, it can be, add up to the total of being heavy. It is 120 grams with the battery in it, which is actually the heaviest out of all the 3 that I actually have here. So guys, if you're wanting something that's a bit lighter, maybe going for one of these 2 might be the better option. So what do you get with this camera? Well, on the Novridge site, I did get a screwdriver, a USB cable, the camera obviously, and a spare battery, and the user manual of how to use this camera. Runcam have made an app where you can connect to this camera and look at the live footage and actually have a live view of it, seeing if anything was caught, maybe someone was cheating and the marshals want to see it straight away. You can show that, which is fantastic. Now, this camera is 180 euro. That was when I bought it. It might be different now. I don't think they actually make these anymore, but it is 180, which is quite steep for what I think, should be worth 180 euro. That's just my opinion. I want to say what I think about this camera. That's just all the specs, right? This camera for me is shit. I hate this camera. I know you're thinking oh yeah, you said there's a load of good qualities, but this camera for me is shit. For me, it overheats too quick. Where you plug in your USB cable to charge it, after maybe 3 or 4 games of playing all day, it becomes loose and it just falls out. Halfway through the point, it wouldn't even charge anymore. I've had to have this replaced twice already, and the footage is just not great. I feel like the footage was very laggy on both of my cameras, and one thing that I had noticed is, now I had a 64 gig micro SD card, class 10 in this, and the video quality had like these like purple streaks going across. It was just not nice. The footage was jittering. Now, maybe that could just be, you know, I got 2 really bad Runcams in a row. That can happen, but at the same time, you know, I just don't feel like I don't trust this camera personally for me. So maybe you guys have had different. Let me know in the comments how you feel about it, but this is just my personal opinion. I don't like this camera. Now guys, moving on to the Runcam Scopecam Lite. Now, this camera is different compared to the Runcam Scopecam. It's in its name, light. This camera is actually really light. I'm pretty sure it's like 90 grams with the battery, which is 3/4 of the weight of the Runcam. Which is, you think, oh, it's only 30 grams off, but sure, 30 grams is still 30 grams. This thing is light. The one thing that I got a bit irritated about this camera is that it's made of plastic. The issue with that is it can break easily. If you guys have it like on your gun and you fall over, your gun falls to the side or something, this has the potential to break. It's very, I feel like it's sort of cheap made. I feel it's not waterproof, I've noticed. The mic on it isn't great whatsoever. I've noticed that, surprisingly, the Scopecam has the best microphone, even though I hate it. It has the best microphone out of all 3 of them. So guys, I've only played twice with this camera. I only played it in the sunny time due to it being not waterproof, and it actually has quite good quality for a video. It shoots in like 1440p at 30 FPS, and then it shoots in 1080p for 60 FPS and 50 FPS, and then obviously 720p for 120 FPS. So it's quite similar to the Runcam, but it does have a few more video settings that you can go up and down on. What I like about this camera, guys, is that it's actually really easy to mount. It's not like, you know, pulling a lever or like, you know, having to sit it down and let it set. It has a standard mounting system where you just put it on the rail and you just let it sit, and you just tie it and just, you know, roll it up and tie it on, and it stays there. It doesn't move, it doesn't wobble, it just stays there. Now, when I got this Runcam, I actually had a spare one of these. They actually gave me a steel slider, a steel mounting system, due to the fact that people had this camera breaking, this bit down here breaking, because all of it was plastic. So now they actually give you a metal mounting piece to actually put into it instead of having the plastic, which is, I think Runcam have actually made a good idea of doing that, instead of, you know, people buying this camera and then having to go back out and buy another piece because it's broke. Another good thing about this one is that I can handle a bigger SD card. Now, we're not talking about SD cards, we're talking actually about micro SD cards, guys. It can handle up to 128 gigabit micro SD card of class 6 and above, so I recommend going for a class 10 anyway. But I believe that this actually saves a lot more time. You can have more videos just sitting there on the camera instead of, you know, after every single day recording, you have to move them onto a computer, or you have to continuously, you know, delete them over and over and over. Whereas you can have, you know, a few days of recording and still have enough room, you know, to maybe record for a few hours. You actually don't really receive quite a lot with this camera. You get the USB cable, the battery, and just the camera, and that is literally it. Nothing else comes with it. You also get the user manual. Obviously, that's, you know, that's mandatory. You have to know how to work the camera. You also can connect this camera to the Runcam app, where you can like see live footage or go back and forth on videos to see if you caught someone cheating or not. The price of this camera is €100, which actually isn't bad. It has more features and more video settings than the original Runcam, which I think is fantastic. But I think it's like, if they made this with an aluminium alloy casing around it, I think I'd be using this way more. And if it was waterproof, I'd be using this 24/7 with no issue. Now, my opinion on this camera, I do like it. I wish it wasn't made out of plastic. I do wish it was waterproof. I wish the microphone was the same quality as the Runcam, but because of its price, you can't really get much more for 100 quid. But for a 100 euro, it's a fantastic camera. The image quality is really good. You can really get those nice slow-mos with it. And overall, yeah, it's definitely like, you know, it's definitely a bargain for a scope cam, for sure. Definitely, it's worth definitely the money that you can put into it. Now guys, on to the final and last camera, the Runcam 2 Airsoft. Now you're probably wondering, why do I have all this stuff on it? Now, this is my current primary Runcam. This is my favorite one. And you know, I'm probably gonna be using this more often now that we're coming into summer and the Airsoft is coming back now. The reason why I got this camera was literally because this Runcam kept breaking. And for my replacement, I had to wait over 3 weeks. Whereas I could just buy another one and wait a week, and so I got this one. It came in at 120 or 130 euro, which ain't that bad. It's all right, you know. But let's talk about the specs of it first, actually. So let's talk about the size of this camera. Now, obviously you can't see it, but I can say that it's not bulky and it's not out of place. It's quite small. It weighs like 61 grams with the battery inside it, which is pretty decent. I think that's pretty good. It's the lightest out of all three. It has a default f2.0 25mm telephoto lens. It has a replaceable lens module, which is fantastic. I think that's the best thing they've actually added. Just in case one of your lenses break, you can just quickly, you know, remove it and just reattach another one and you're back in game. I think that's absolutely fantastic that Runcam have added that to this camera. It is also made out of plastic, which unfortunately I'm a bit annoyed at. The camera itself is made out of plastic, but the casing that it sits in is made out of aluminium, which is good because that means it can hold in tight and it's not going to wobble or move or fall out of place. It only shoots in like 1080p for 60 frames per second again, and 720p for 120 frames per second. So it's the same as the Runcam Scopecam, which I'm a bit annoyed, you know, because of the price. I thought they might have had, you know, the same video settings as this camera down here, but unfortunately it doesn't. But it makes up within the video quality and the video imaging within the camera. Unfortunately, guys, this camera is also 64 gig max capacity for a micro SD card. They also do recommend, again, a class 6 and above. I recommend a class 10, once again, just to, you know, drill it into your head, guys. Just keep that in mind. If you're looking for like a camera that has, you know, a high capacity for holding memory, you just want to keep your eyes out, as these, you know, have 64 gig and then that one has 128 gig. When you buy this camera, guys, now, this is what I really liked about this camera now. You get the camera itself, the battery, a USB cable, a rail mount, which I was surprised. I didn't expect a rail mount to be a part of this, which was fantastic. It saved me quite a good bit of money to get that as well. And a rail adapter for the camera itself. Now, that's quite a lot for when the camera comes in at like, you know, 120 or 130 euro. It's pretty good. Now, my honest opinion on this camera, this is my favorite camera out of all three of them. The reasons why, I'm gonna tell you right now. The image quality of this camera is absolutely fantastic. What I've noticed with these two cameras is that the quality is, you know, it's quite white. You have to do a lot of post editing to get into the right colors and the right saturation. Whereas with this camera, it's nice and dark, the sort of style that I like, already preset within the camera itself. It's fantastic. Another thing is that it's smooth. I've had no issues with the slow motion. I've had no jitters. I've had no wobbles. I've had no purple streaks going across, which is perfect because that's why I had with this one twice, which is fucking irritating. Another thing about this camera is that I've had no issues with the charging port. The charging port is really strong in this camera. Hasn't fallen out, hasn't broken or anyway, whereas compared to this one, or this one, where the charging ports are already nearly gone. Now guys, if I were to pick one of which to buy, I would recommend buying the Runcam 2 Airsoft. If you're on like a small budget, this camera is fantastic. It comes with all the right accessories that you need to start this little project of you shooting people and recording it. Compared to these two, you know, this one is quite expensive. This one is the cheapest out of 3, depending on what you really want and what your style is. Like if you want something that's gonna like, you know, hold and, you know, keep its value and like stay strong, I recommend the Runcam 2 Airsoft. If you want something that, you know, has a higher capacity but is prone to maybe breaking, the Scopecam Lite. And if you want something that, you know, that might fall and not break, the Runcam Scopecam, as it is made out of aluminium alloy casing. Now guys, this brings it to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope this video was informative to you guys on which Scopecam you want and which one is the best for you guys. Hit the like button, hit the comment button of which one is your favorite, and don't forget guys to subscribe to the channel. Until next time guys, stay safe.